Today from the global lane, Saudi journalists allegedly murdered in Turkey. Was Prince bin Salman responsible? As relations unravel, will you pay more at the pump? A giant U.S. retailer goes bankrupt. What it may mean for your Christmas shopping. Antifa and the Proud Boys square off in Portland and New York. What can be done to prevent the violence from spreading? And some civility lessons from Michelle Obama and Ronald Reagan. And it's all right here, right now, from the global lane. Where is Saudi journalist, American resident Jamal Khashoggi? Was he actually murdered in Turkey by Saudi security agents? President Trump sent Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to Saudi Arabia to meet with King Salman to find out what he knows. Pompeo also traveled to Turkey to meet with government officials there. The Turks maintain they have an audio recording proving that the Washington Post reporter was brutally tortured to death by interrogators at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Well, here to fill us in with more and how this may affect U.S.-Saudi relations, especially the price you pay for oil and gasoline, is Nick Loris. He's an economist, energy analyst, and fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Nick, thanks for being here. Okay, the bottom line, President Trump says he may take tough measures against the Saudis. They say they would impose a harsh punishment in retaliation. So what might this mean for gasoline prices at the pump, home heating oil prices this winter?
Yeah, well, if speculators are acting under the presumption that this might escalate into increased measures which cramp down oil production, you're only going to see prices increase. But the good news is we've heard both the Saudi Arabia energy minister saying they're going to bump up oil production, and the United States continues to produce at a record clip. And so despite some of the threats and measures as to what's happening, and not to mention the impending Iranian oil sanctions that are going to take full effect in the beginning of November, we may see actually more supply coming down the pipeline for fall, and that would only be good news for energy consumers.
Nick, the U.S. is now the largest oil producer in the world, about 15 million barrels a day. Saudi Arabia just over 12 million. Can't we do without Saudi oil?
Without it, it certainly would increase prices, especially if it came offline at a relatively rapid clip. There's no real incentive for that to happen because that's a major revenue stream for their country. But at the same time, the best way that we can counterbalance any type of country or organization like OPEC from manipulating energy markets is through greater supply, increased access, and more choice. And so as we continue to develop our resources, we're pushing for opening markets off the coast of the United States, on federal lands, not in our national parks or our national monuments or any of those areas, but on federal lands that have abundance of resources. We can do a lot to counterbalance any type of supply decrease in countries like Saudi Arabia or Venezuela or Iran.
How about the U.S. relationship? How important is Saudi Arabia to U.S. vital interests in the Middle East?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of importance there, not just in terms of oil production, because transportation fuel is such a necessary component of not just the U.S. economy, but the global economy. And so when you have a supply shock or a major disruption in those supplies, households and businesses across the country and across the world are going to pay the consequences, not to mention we're pushing forward with a nuclear agreement to commercialize nuclear technology. So these relationships are certainly critically important when it comes to energy supplies and energy development and just broadly based diplomatically, too. And I think it sends a signal to the rest of the world, especially as it regards oil production, that nothing's going to slow down here.
Nick, I know you're an economist, so some members of Congress say that Trump should rip up that $110 billion arms deal with the Saudis. Is that an appropriate response? What would that mean for the U.S. and Saudi relationship and the U.S. economy?
Yeah, I think we certainly need to take a measured approach, and it's understandable why the administration is upset, but at the same time, we don't want to encourage any type of activities or behaviors that would cause long-standing damage. And I think there can be productive relationships that continue to build momentum toward civil societies, strong rule of laws that move us away from dictatorial decisions that can have negative repercussions, not just for the citizens of Saudi Arabia, but really around the world. And we want to strengthen those relationships and create a civil discourse that allows for economic growth, not just in the United States, but in Saudi Arabia and the rest of the world.
But obviously something must be done if it's shown that Prince bin Salman or other Saudi government officials were involved in this murder. So how should the United States respond? Yeah, and that's part of the issue right now, is really getting down to the brass tacks and figuring out what happened and getting the full details before there's any reactionary measures. And so I think there's going to be time to figure out what happened, and then the administration can work with the State Department and Secretary Pompeo to understand what measures should ultimately be taken. But really the first step here is trying to figure out what happened without unraveling what could be a productive relationship. And so unfortunately right now it's kind of a wait-and-see approach until we get more information. And probably a lot of pressure from Congress on the president. Okay. Nick Loris from the Heritage Foundation in Washington. We appreciate you. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks for having me.
God Almighty is a God of blessing. He always wants to bless his people. But how do you get that blessing? And what principles will unlock that secret?
In Miraculous Blessings, Pat Robertson shows you how to open the floodgates of God's awesome blessings in your life.
In order to have a blessing, you've got to be blessable.
Discover what the Bible has to say about God's covenant of blessing, the laws of blessing, and what are the hindrances to the blessings of God.
The words of Jesus, they are as valid as the law of gravity, and if we follow those laws, we will be blessed.
You'll see amazing true stories of everyday people whose lives were rescued and transformed by God's miraculous blessings.
But even the doctors acknowledge that this had to be a miracle.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com to become a CBN partner and get miraculous blessings today.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Retail giant Sears has announced it is closing another 142 unprofitable stores. And Sears Holdings says it's filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Is this a positive development to keep Sears afloat, or is the retailer finished for good because of online shopping from companies like Amazon and Walmart? What will all this mean for your Christmas shopping experience? Well, here with some insights is Financial Issues radio host Dan Celia. Dan, good to have you on the show. So what's going on with Sears and Kmart? Please explain.
Well, Gary, you know, they've been struggling for a long time, a number of years. Some are blaming it on Amazon. We've got to look at Sears management over the years as well. But, you know, this is all retail. Retail has went through an ice age. They seem to be coming out of it a little bit. But all retailers dramatically impact. The big box stores aren't what they used to be. Certainly when I was a kid, Sears was such a staple in our community. And I think it's so many others. And it's heartbreaking, to be honest with you, to see this happening. But, you know, I think my hope is under Chapter 11, they can reorganize a little bit. They've got to get more involved in .com kind of shopping. I think they're going to try to do that. Hopefully they'll be successful. This is a very unfortunate situation. I think it's not going to impact our ability as far as Christmas shopping, as far as getting deals and such. But I will say this, Gary, I think that retailers in general this Christmas are going to try very, very hard to maintain the momentum that they've picked up over the last 6 months. As I said, they are coming out of this somewhat of an ice age, and I think they're going to work hard to try to get customers back into the stores. But it's going to be a difficult row to hoe. There's no doubt about it.
Dan, I want to get back to that in a moment, but do you think these retailers, Sears and Kmart, will eventually fall on the ash heap of history? Are they done for good, or is this going to save them?
No, I don't think it's going to save them. I think that these stores are just, going to continue to struggle. Sears and Kmart had competition that they never really adjusted in a good way to from Walmart as Walmart was growing. Now it's, the Amazons of the world or the Walmart.com and those kinds of things. I think it's going to be very, very difficult.
Well, Dan, what really happened here with Sears? Because I know Richard Sears, the founder, started the company by selling pocket watches. Then he moved into catalog sales. Why didn't anyone at the top of Sears have a vision to put their catalog online before Amazon dominated the market?
That is the million-dollar question, Gary. And you would think, with all the retail experience they had, that they would have seen this coming. And they were very positioned very well to be able to do that. But, this goes back to what I said earlier. It's the management. The management, never kept up with what was happening in the economy of retail and didn't see either thought that what was coming was not going to impact them or didn't think what was coming was going to be something that was going to be lasting into the future. Okay, now the buyout by Kmart, did that hurt or help Sears and Kmart? Would they have been gone by now if they hadn't done that? It hurt Sears. It didn't help Kmart at all. Kmart was pretty much, I'm talking now purely from a financial perspective and their financials. What Sears did was they bought something that was, doomed. It was doomed, and they should have never, it was a horrible decision to make that buy. I think Sears would have had a much better chance of survival had they not had that wrapped around their neck. So I think it was a very bad move. I think Kmart, I don't want to blame it all on the Kmart buy and merger, but nonetheless, it had a lot to do with it. They didn't buy something good that was going to help lift them up and move to a different level. They bought something that was struggling in hopes of turning it around when they were struggling from the same issues. Okay, back to the Christmas shopping outlook now. With fewer Kmart and fewer Sears stores out there, does that force more consumers to do their Christmas shopping online? How will that impact it? Well, I think, first of all, you've got this movement to online shopping to begin with. And I think in certain areas, this is going to push that envelope a little bit more. So I don't think it's going to, there are areas maybe in very rural communities where they might, be able to, get some help a little bit. But for the most part, I don't know that it's going to push people that have no desire to shop online to that place. But it is certainly going to add to the normal attrition that big box stores are seeing to online shopping. With everyone working in this Trump economy, does that mean fewer holiday deals because more people have money to spend? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to see fewer deals. I think it's going to see actually a frenzy of even more deals because people have the money and people and the retailers want to get a piece of it. Okay, Dan Celia, financial expert, thanks for being with us. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it.
Parents, the Superbook Bible app is a great way to get your child reading the Bible because in today's busy world, we can use some help. The free Superbook Bible app has fun stuff your kids will love. They'll have a blast learning the Bible, playing great games, watching cool videos, discovering heroes in the Bible. They'll have fun while they learn God's Word. The Superbook Kids Bible app, available now.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
We had 4 jobs that didn't go right, but, we didn't waver in our faith.
That's when God put on my heart that we needed to do the well.
Within a couple of days, we got an insurance refund check that we had no idea was coming.
And here we are, this year, it's just boom.
You go out and help other people, and you get rewarded for it.
Get Pat Robertson's latest teaching, Miraculous Blessings.
Coming to a big city near you? Let's pray street brawls like these and violence between Antifa and counter-protesters are contained to Portland and New York. This is the type of incivility that Hillary Clinton and other Democrats say will continue unless you elect their candidates to office next month. Well, joining us with some insights on what went wrong in Portland and how to deal with these protests and political violence is a man who knows the law all too well. He's former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. Sheriff Clark, good to see you again. I guess people can't enjoy a Friday or Saturday night out in downtown Portland anymore. Where did the Portland politicians and the police go wrong here? It looks like quite a few people were hurt.
Thank you. They went wrong right from the beginning. You mentioned some of the leaders of the Democrat Party, Hillary Clinton for one, Chuck Schumer, Maxine Waters, and others are urging this from Antifa. They are spurring this on. They are pouring gasoline on what is a smoldering fire, and it's going to erupt in some very serious flames. Look, that was a failure on the part of the Portland Police Department. This is not a criticism of the frontline officers. They are under orders. This is a failure of political leadership out of City Hall, starting with the mayor, starting with the police chief or police commissioner, who told their police officers to stand by. I cannot believe that a police commissioner, a police chief, or a sheriff would put his or her people, frontline people, in harm's way without the resources and the ability to first protect people, law-abiding people, next to protect property, and third, just as important, to protect themselves. They stood by and watched this happen. This is an abomination. It's not the first time. Several months ago, the Portland Police Department was accused of not backing up or assisting ICE in a call for help. So I'm seeing a pattern here out of at least Portland, but I've seen this exercise in some other areas as well since the days of Ferguson. Look at Baltimore, where the mayor said that she gave the rioters room to riot. This is a wrong, failed, dangerous strategy for law enforcement in terms of dealing with these jackbooted thugs from Antifa. This is not a protest group. It's not a demonstration group. This is their fighting force, the Democrat Party. It's similar to the KKK back in the 50s. That was their fighting force. It's similar to the brown shirts of the Nazi Party. They are going to incite fear and intimidation in people, and they're going to get their way come hell or high water. And what they're expecting is the people on the right, the conservatives, the GOP, to back down. And if they won't back down, they're going to use force. But I'll tell you what, from what I saw last weekend in Portland and New York, they're getting a little different response from our side.
Well, why would they allow this to happen to their cities?
Like I said, failed leadership. That's why. They're in bed with this group. They're in bed with this resistance movement. All these things like sanctuary cities, that's all from the same, they're singing off the same sheet of music. This is an abdication. I would like to see the United States Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions, give the U.S. Attorney in Oregon and in New York the authority to, under 8 U.S.C. 1324, as it relates to illegal immigration in sanctuary cities, to indict one of these mayors, one of these town council presidents, one of these university presidents that's calling for this sort of thing, indict them federally. There are riot statutes on the federal book that Antifa should be indicted under if the federal government would show the will that the state government and the local government will not.
I know in New York, Antifa was countered by a group known as Proud Boys. Who are the Proud Boys? Are they just as violent as Antifa? Do they pose as much of a threat as Antifa?
Well, I don't know who the Proud Boys are. I heard the name, but I don't know who they are. But I'll tell you what, here's what's happening, and here's the danger in it. You know, when Antifa pulls these actions, these antics, look, when they show up at a location, their main objective is to initiate confrontation. It's not to demonstrate. It's not to counter-protest. This is an insurgency group. When law enforcement does not show the will, it's an abdication of the responsibility, first of all, but when they don't show the will to protect life and property, to prevent these things from blowing up, you know what? They allow this to rest in the hands of the individual. The individual has the right, a God-given right to self-defense. And so they're going to exercise that if the government will not do their job.
I know arrest warrants are out for some of the Proud Boys in New York, but what about Antifa in Portland? So what do you think should be done also to prevent this incivility from spreading to other big American cities, especially if the leftists don't like the outcome of the upcoming November election?
So I'd like to see a little more assertive action by law enforcement to prevent this stuff. We know what Antifa's showing up for. They're showing up looking for trouble. You don't cancel the entire rally put on by the people who have done the right thing, have gone out and gotten the permits. They're in there to exercise their First Amendment right. Antifa's not there exercising their First Amendment right. As a matter of fact, they are violating other people's civil right. Guess what? The individual citizen has the right to be able to defend themselves. And when you start to do this on a large scale, it's not going to be pretty. But it'll be the fault of the law enforcement officials for not dealing with this in a more effective way.
And the politicians for not leading them in that direction. Okay, law and order analyst, former Sheriff David Clark, thank you for your insights.
My pleasure.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
I recently saw this USA Today article and posted it to social media. In my view, it's a timely example of civility. Yes, that's what we need more of in America today. The story details how Michelle Obama has developed a friendship and fondness for former President George W. Bush. Remember when he sat beside the former First Lady at John McCain's funeral and shared a cough drop with her? I must admit I was a bit disappointed with the way some Christians responded to that story. Partners in crime? Some cynically suggested, of course, that's because both the former First Lady and Mr. Bush worked to advance a globalist agenda. I think they missed the point. On most political issues, the two would likely disagree. Yet there they were, not screaming obscenities at each other or sitting across the room scowling at one another, but kindly sharing pleasantries and cough drops. No animosity, just kindness and civility. Instead of waging street battles, like we saw from Antifa and their Proud Boys in Portland and in New York, we should seek commonalities as Americans and treat one another with decency and respect. I thought of another example. It was set by one of America's most beloved presidents, Ronald Reagan. I had the privilege of meeting him several times and covering his presidency for CBN News in Washington. In an interview with William F. Buckley, President Reagan told of the time when he had invited Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill, a Democrat, over for dinner. One day after that, he read a newspaper article where O'Neill made some harsh statements about the president. Reagan phoned the Speaker and asked him to explain.
And I called him, and I said, Tip, I thought we had a relationship here where we could do business together and all, and now I read in the paper that you said, and he interrupted me and said, well, old buddy, that's just politics. He said, after 6 o'clock, we're buddies, we're friends.
And in 1986, at a St. Patrick's Day dinner honoring O'Neill, Reagan said this.
The fact of our friendship is testimony to the political system that we're part of and the country we live in. A country which permits two not so shy and not so retiring Irishmen to have it out on the issues rather than on each other or their countrymen.
Political opponents during the day, setting aside their differences to be friends at night. No insults, no threats, no calls to violence. They fought their battles on the floors of Congress and at the ballot box, not in the streets. They knew in politics you win some, you lose some, and then you move on to the next political fight, the next election. I don't know if they ever shared cough drops, but they always treated each other with respect and civility. In the upcoming election, look to their example and then vote for leaders who will conduct themselves in a similar manner. The only alternative is more of this. So let's remember the words of Jesus in Matthew 12:25. Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself will not stand. We are Americans first, not Democrats or Republicans, liberals or conservatives. Americans. We share the same house. It takes hard work, compromise, communication, not shouting, respect and understanding to keep it standing. And remember, as the captain in Tennille's saying 43 years ago, love will keep us together. Well, that's it from the Global Lane. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Twitter. And now on the CBN News Channel on Broadcast TV. And until next time, be blessed.